O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy Krishna. Arjuna is the calf, and people of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. Okay, some more cream. More cream. We'll come back to the same sutra that we closed with yesterday, 66, and take a little bit of a different commentary. Swami Shivananda is very classical commentary. Swami Venkatesh is bhakti, and I say classical jnana, so very much in the detail of what's being said, and from a jnani perspective. And Swami Satchidananda has a very Western bent. We always recommend for anybody who's reading Bhagavad Gita for the first time to pick up Living Gita, and we keep copies around here for just such an occasion. So just in case, because it resonates well with the Western psyche. We're very jaded in the West. This is the most materialistic culture in the world. Yeah, and so we have to be jaded because it doesn't work. It turns out very jaded people, it helps to stoke vairagya, dispassion, in the Western culture. Okay, so 66. And the reason for picking this up again, abandoning all dharma, this is, it almost sounds like sacrilege, because the entirety of the Bhagavad Gita teaching has been in the importance of doing your dharma as the path, as the way. Doing your dharma, but renouncing what? Renouncing activities that are meaningless and who for?
Yourself.
Self-centered. Yeah. And renouncing the fruit of the action on the meaningful activities. Really everything, but renouncing the fruit of the action. So those terms are Sanskrit samnyasa and tyaga. They both have a meaning of renunciation, but the meaning's a bit different. One is renouncing action. The other relates to renouncing the anticipation of the fruit coming from it. And now here he says renouncing all dharma, but only after he shared, think only of me, devote yourself completely to me, and offer everything to me, and you shall surely have me. So it's in the company of this. Renouncing, abandoning all dharma, take refuge in me alone. I will liberate thee from all sins, grieve not. This is for the bhakti is a path, but bhakti is also a destination. There are on this wall of these masters, there are those who've reached through jnana, through knowledge. A great example of that is Swami Chinmayananda. But then having reached, he becomes a, what, Hari? Bhakta. Absolute devotee. And he can explain why it's logical to be a bhakta. why it's logical, why there's nothing else that makes more sense than being an absolute devotee of the Lord, of the Absolute.
Is he the one that writes in logic? I remember I read it on one of the guys who figured out everything with logic, and it was pretty neat.
So we can say that it's intelligent to surrender. The most intelligent thing we can do is to surrender. And here today, I think we'll discuss the wisdom sacrifice, which is really the surrender. So Swamiji adds some commentary. He says, Dharma, the concept of Dharma, can be determined variously in this. He says, first is narrow, sectarian, and organized religion, which is often confused with Dharma. In Western society in particular, in this age, everything's breaking down. Everything is breaking down. The organized religions are all blowing up, breaking down. There is, and in every one of the lineages in the West, in particular in North America, in every one of the lineages, there are scandals in every single one of them. Every single one of them. And that's uniquely American, by the way. Yeah. And it's apparently just perfect for us. And so there was a time even, and it wasn't this long ago, Swami Venkatesh, this is based on his teachings from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like that. And this would have been compiled around 2000, so 20 years ago, not too long ago. But even then, there were still organized religions, and even in that 20 years, so much changes happened within the organized religions, and so much scandal. So the first point that he makes is that would have been seen to be dharmic, observing the tenets of the religions, etc. But of course, what we see is that uncentered observation of the tenets, just doing it for show and such, which had become the way. Not necessarily not Dharma. But Swamiji says, to an extent, it's true that organized religion supports the masses, thus shielding them from degradation. It unites and keeps them together. But when it's foolishly clung to, which is really where they begin to die, it strangulates the very people whom it kept together. Abandonment of all Dharma, however, does not mean that we should egoistically and deludedly give them up, but we should not cling to them as if they were an end unto themselves, which most of the organized religions today would become so much hardened in the sects for those who still are following, that it seems to be an end unto itself. But the goal of all of them was never to be a Christian or a Buddhist or a Muslim. The goal was always to be, one way or another, in union. And that union is an individual, a group can support. Precepts support so much. The moral precepts support so much. The yamas and niyamas of yoga help so much of Raja Yoga. And today, in Western society, we've generally thrown those out too, because we're not willing to accept anything because it all has the taint of the show. But there are aspects of the teaching that are so greatly helpful. And the fact is, the Bhagavad Gita is still very much alive. It's very much a living teaching. Yes? But of course, it tends to get thrown out as well in this age. Because we're seeking something new, something different, because nothing else has worked. So that's not, when he says abandoning all Dharma, he's not really saying abandoning all of the precepts and the traditions and all of this. Secondly, when he talks about dharma, he says the inherent nature of the body, mind, etc., is often designated as their dharma. And this, when Lord Krishna talks about dharma, generally he's talking about this. What is the nature of this person? And we've had a lot of discussion about that over the last week or so. What is it? What is the nature? I'll give you an example. We were talking a couple of days ago, and I share these examples just to help us touch our own examples. But the nature of this particular person, the mind functions a certain way, very scientific in its way of relating to things. I've shared it. Always used to like to take them apart and see how they worked and all of that. So, and that relates to a certain role or certain types of roles that are played by a person like this. Generally not an artist. Generally not a poet. And then the interests were related to technology and such. And we didn't have an interest in language. We took language, French, for 4 years, and we never got it. Just never got it. And I think it was developed well enough where I could read the back of a wine bottle, a French wine bottle at some point, and translate that for friends. That was the extent of it. 4 years of French. And every moment of it was torture. And we didn't get it because people said, well, I don't understand why you don't like it. I like it. So I tried to like it. And then finally getting into the tech business, and then after many years of that and terrible dissatisfaction with it, of course, like anything that we do, if we do it in order to get something from it, we end up terribly dissatisfied. And thinking it was the thing that I was doing, I decided to be a music producer. Now, this didn't have anything to do with really wanting to be a music producer. It had something to do with a relationship that I was trying to foster. Oh my God. And of course, I failed miserably. And where Lord Krishna says that you will revolve around the post like a merry-go-round, in other words, nature will make you to do according to your nature. So I learned what it was like. I got kicked out of the apartment. I learned what it was like not to even have money for a hamburger, for anything. And my nature was not to beg. I couldn't beg, so I was just beginning to starve. And so what to do? I went back to the same business. So when we read those shlokas about you can't run away from this because your own nature will make you do it. Whatever it is. And now here, when he's saying abandoning dharma, he's talking about this dharma or this karma, which is the nature of the body, the nature of the mind, the nature of the desires, the nature of the interests, etc. Which, try as much as you like, you can't really change much. The things that you enjoy doing, if you look from the time when you're 13 or 14 years old, the things that come naturally to you, to 30 or 40 or 50 or 80, they don't change much at all. Even if you wanted to try to change them, it would be very little. So when I read scripture today, it's the same mind relating to it and tearing it apart and looking at it in a certain way. Where someone who has a natural tendency towards poetry or art or this would read it in a different way. Yes? But the teaching that's shared in 65, the think only of me, devote yourself completely to me, offer everything to me, that's irrespective of the dharma or of the karma or of the nature. It's irrespective. We think of you in however you give us the capacity to think of you. Right? So if we think here of you in a scientific way, tearing everything apart and looking at it and seeing what's inside, and another one relates in a devotional way, thinking of you as my lover, as my brother, as my sister, as my wife, as my husband, as my father or mother, or as my child, which is the unique dharma, of course, that our dear Jules has, then think of me that way. But still think of me as the universal through that approach. Devoting will be different depending upon the nature of the particular person. Devoting also will be different. But absolute devotion is still absolute devotion. That's not different. And the fruit, of course, will be different. And the action performed in order to bring the fruit will be different. Completely different. Okay, the altar is a different place for me now. It's a different place for everyone, I suppose. But still, there was always an altar. The altar for me in the past was the work that I was doing. That's where I offered, and what I put on the altar was the ego sense. So, and now I place the absolute on the altar, and the altar still is the work that I do. It's not, we can say here, I mean, that's the altar for the temple, but really the altar is wherever I go, just like the altar is wherever you go. And then, who are you worshiping? What are you worshiping? What are you placing on the altar? Right? Is it the little self? Is it the universal, or is it a transitional stage where it's some of this and some of that? Oh, good morning, Dao. So this discussion of Dharma is really this. It's the nature. And then this abandonment of Dharma, which is the point of 66, is very specific. It doesn't speak to abandoning your duty before it's time. It's speaking to abandoning the notion that you are doing. The way Swamiji says it is, its abandonment implies a vigilant non-identification of the divine with the functions of the body, mind, etc. If you are to remember that I am not this body, you're going to have to be vigilant about it. And there has to be a positive, true assertion in order to release a negative, untrue assertion. So ego is asserting that I am separate, alone, incomplete, and I am this body. That's the ego assertion. And it's a feeling. It's not a thought, but all the thoughts, when that feeling is taken to be true, all of the thoughts are born of that. So I need this, I want that. If only that would have happened, I would be happy now. All this stuff is all born of the feeling of being separate. And so as long as we place that feeling on the altar, then there's really no getting away from the suffering caused by the identification with this. But when I place the absolute, however I relate to the absolute, however you relate to the absolute, if you relate to it as light, or you relate to it as the divine feminine or the universe, as long as it's big enough to encompass everything, it's fine. But it has to encompass everything. has to encompass everything. You have to have a place where you can go and you can say, you're the boss of all of this, so I'm raising the issue with you. You got to have that. And if it's a piece of clay that you call Ganesha, like is done in the villages, actually they use cow manure in the villages in India, and they make their Ganeshas from the cow manure. And they shape it, put it out in the sun to dry, and place it on the altar. And to them, that's the way of relating to the infinite. And they made Ganesha the king in the mind. And then vigilant, meaning, we know what vigilant means. So vigilant identification with the divine, which is the truth of us, which we can come to see as the truth of us, that everything here is the universal. This body is the universal. Motherhood, the milk flowing is the universal, right? Every little bit of it. All of the cycles that are happening in this body are the universal. The energy flowing is the universal. It's made of the 5 elements, the universal. The intelligence, universal intelligence. So I may have my thoughts, you may have your thoughts, but this mind, universal. And even when we have our thoughts and your thoughts, we share them. Yes, now it's a crack up. So what he's sharing here from this perspective is that this abandonment of all dharmas is actually the abandonment of doership. But in a vigilant way, because we have to continue to remind ourselves.
Could you say it's not my dharma, it's the Lord's dharma?
It is. That's exactly it. Beautiful. Beautiful. That's it. Jai. And it doesn't mean in the way I stopped doing. It means the recognition that I never was doing. But a vigilant recognition of this, which can't be accomplished by stopping to do what's supposed to be done. It can only be done by identifying with the absolute instead of identifying with the body. So, okay. Okay, we move on. 67 to 69, these three. Now, the teaching of the Gita is completed. That's it. That's it. Those last 2 shlokas, that's it. And now Krishna gives a warning, and he holds a carrot out as well in these 3. He says, this highest teaching, highest secret, is never to be spoken by thee to one who is devoid of austerities or devotion, nor to one who does not render service, or who does not desire to listen, nor to one who wrangles at me, denies me, and all of that. Now, in this age, of course, that's completely out the window. Because everybody's talking about, well, we're all one. How many? It must be in everyone's dialogue now. Almost everyone's.
Well, there's like a huge segment of society right now that's like atheist, though. It's like totally their super individualistic. So everyone in the spiritual community has the like we're all one vibe going on, but there's this whole other segment of the population that you probably don't interact with hardly at all.
No, in fact, I'm a pilgrim, so my God, of course I do.
Oh, right, yeah.
I interact with everyone, and no one's an atheist. Everyone wants to be happy. That is honest to God. That's Swami Shivananda's. So everyone is trying to be happy.
Yeah, that's true.
And even the religious, they don't really know where it is yet.
Right.
Yeah. They might be abiding by a set of precepts that will help them to find it, where others might not be. But also people who don't believe in anything higher still believe in something higher. It's a funny thing. Because everyone's trying to attain to something. And you would only try to attain to that which you place as more valuable than what you have. Yes? So society's broken down, but that hasn't changed. And honestly, everyone, if we genuinely found out where happiness was, would we not go for it? So the labels even break down in that way. No, my experience is I meet everyone where they are. Whatever they say they are, they're not. But whatever they say affects them now. It has an effect on them now. So we just work with people where we are. It's like that. And it's fine. Whatever they say, we just do our best to meet people where they are. And I will say that in the pilgrimage walks with everyone, regardless of the belief system, if I make a comment like, "You're not the body," no one has ever disagreed with me. So everyone also is holding some higher belief about their existence. Something, although it's not lived. Although it's not actuated, it's not understood, and it's not lived. But still, different conversations will ensue, like related to ancestors or home.
Because the Guru is always there in all of us, right?
Guru is always there in all of us, working with every one of us where we are. And there's always some higher aspiration within each of us. Although it will get heard in different ways, and everyone has the experience of conscience, even though we try to cover it up. So these are universal. Okay, first is, please don't speak it to people that aren't prepared to hear. And why? There's an advice when you took your mantra. You took mantra initiation, Radha? Okay. And often we'll hear, don't let anyone know your mantra. Really what's being shared is, don't talk with anyone about your spiritual practice. Not unless and even then, if you're in Sangha, maybe, but even then, because every time you start that discussion, someone will try to convince you it should be something else. So for someone who doesn't have genuine austerity, someone who's really not genuinely interested in union with something higher, Lord Krishna is saying, don't share it. And that's a lot of the reason for it, is we all, until we get there, we're also carrying this doubt. And so these two factors are still in us. We have to come to the place where they meet, where they both came from, which is the absolute. But also, because of the way we're wired, we're constantly trying to tell people what they should be doing instead of what they're doing. How many times have you gotten parenthood advice?
We actually don't interact.
That's the only reason why not. Jai Ma. Yes, Dal, it is. I'll read the next two and then we'll come back and close them out tomorrow morning. He with supreme devotion to me will teach this supreme secret to my devotees, shall doubtless come to me. And then 69, nor is there any among men who does dearer service to me, nor shall there be another on earth dearer to me than he, the one who shares this dharma, the one who shares the teaching. Okay, we'll come back in the morning. And, wow. You know, whatever project you start, if you don't die in the process, you'll finish it. if you stay with it. When did we start? It's almost 1 year. On the
We
Gita.
started in July last year.
July last year. So
July.
10 months. 10 months. Jai Gurudev. Pilgrimage was like that. I said when I took the first step, I will die or I'll get to Peace Pilgrim celebration in New Jersey. And we got to Peace Pilgrim celebration in New Jersey. Okay, let's close. Final prayer in Arati, page 174, the short version again. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyamamritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble Lord Sakura Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Okay, let's rise for art.